Welcome to Shit Black Girls Watch podcast, where we break down film, sex, and black girl magic, one episode at a time. I'm your co-host, Mia Dene, here with my bestie, Trish, and we are back on the mic to give you the real on what's worth watching, what had us screaming at the screens, and why black women are always bringing the flavor to the culture. So today we are actually talking about Marlon Wayans' latest film, Him. And before we get into that, of course, we have to bring up our thoughts of the week. So this week we are talking about what does it really take to be great? Do people actually want to be great? Or I don't know, is it just like a societal thing that we're expected to be great? Or are people actually making the sacrifices to be great?
And I think that it's something I've been thinking about too, especially as it relates to this week's topic. Um, I don't know, man. It feels like one, I guess we would have different levels of greatness and what that looks like individually to different people. But two, I do think, and I was saying this earlier, becoming great isn't always a pretty story. Like it's not always this well constructed, tightly wrapped narrative where you come up and you keep your goodness all the way through. Like sometimes being great requires you to become a villain. And I think that's a part of that process that a lot of people don't talk about because we like to think of ourselves as good and we like to try to cling to that identity. But I think to become a certain type of leader, to become a certain level of success, you're going to have to I just feel like you have to hurt someone in the process. And I only think of that because when you think about billionaires, I don't know if I can think of a really good billionaire, you know? So, I mean, I just been thinking about that a lot. Like, what would I be willing to sacrifice to become a billionaire? And is there a way to do that and keep your goodness intact?
I think there is. I think there's a negative connotation around the more money you have, the more evil you become, that money evil and all this other stuff. I don't fully believe in that. I do agree that some people do make certain sacrifices, which include sacrificing others' well-being, others' feelings,
Mm-hmm.
to get to the top. And I do believe there's a certain level of like grit you have to be great, but I don't think that you have to be a bad person or so self-absorbed
Mm-hmm.
that you can't be great without like actually being a good person. Because I feel like, I mean, maybe this isn't the best example, but like the Russell Wilsons of the world or like the athletes that still have like really good
Russell
heart.
Wilson's a great example.
Yeah, that like still have really good hearts, that still give back to the community, celebrities that still do that, that are millionaires. They might not be billionaires, but they have
Mm-hmm.
wealth. So yeah, I do think it takes a lot to be great. I think for me, like I was raised with the mentality that you always do well with everything that you do. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's, just for a lot of Black people and people of color that you have to
Mm-hmm.
work a lot harder to get further in society. Um, but after a certain age, I said, fuck greatness. I was just
Bro,
like,
I am okay with average. At
right?
this point in my life, and my average, I feel like is a really good average to me. Like if this is what average looks like, if this is what middle of the spectrum looks like, I think I'm kind of okay with it.
Like a part of me still is like, oh, I could be one of those women that's on like Forbes 40 under 40 and all this other stuff, like people
Yeah.
that do like work 24/7 and have this certain grit and mentality. But then
Hmm.
there's another part of me that's just like, girl, have that soft girl life, relax. Like you could still work decently hard and not like wear yourself out. And I feel like I'm in that space. And so sometimes it's a hard balance
Hmm.
of like trying to be great, but then also like enjoying life. I guess that's the whole work-life balance where people,
Hmm.
some very successful people don't believe in that. They're like, you work hard and that's what happens. You become great. So,
I think one, that's a great point. I'm thinking of it as I've been thinking about that lately. And what's funny is Ben's girl and I talked about this
hey,
where
Josephine.
oh, I didn't want to. I didn't know
Oh,
if it
my
was okay.
bad.
It's fine. Whatever. Our friend's girlfriend had mentioned this before we were talking about it because she and I kind of have had the same trajectory, much higher than I am, but same trajectory in corporate America. And we were talking about like this obsession, what I had had, and this desire she had had to get to the C suite. And we're like,
Mhm.
man, that'll be like the moment, you know, when I don't have to work as hard. But when I get to the C suite, I'm gonna have to work twice as hard. And I'm gonna have to work constantly and all the time. So I think also that's something I'm starting to think about is the type of success I want. Is that really like what I define as success anymore? And does it
Yeah.
require the same resilience and grit of our mothers and fathers and everyone before us? Or is there a way where I can balance like living my life and enjoying it and getting the things I want without necessarily having to tire myself out, exhaust myself, burn myself out all the time to get them? Like, is there a way to have both? You know? I don't know.
Yeah, I think there is. This is the last thing I'm going to say. I think
Okay.
there is when you're doing things that you love to do, like you're actually
I agree.
working in your passion and your purpose. Because now, when I'm not working in my passion and my purpose, I do not feel like giving someone else 1000% of me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm just not as motivated. Like, when I was younger, and that's another thing, when you're younger, you have more stamina,
Girl.
more energy, more grit, and you just care more about showing up. And now I'm just like, y'all not even understanding how amazing I am anyway. So I'm not even about to exhaust myself because you're not even going to appreciate this work that I'm putting in.
Girl, I do think greatness is a young people's game. And I only say that because it's like you said, they got more stamina. They got, and I only say like young people isn't like that's a 20s game because you have more stamina. I think you have what feels like, and I don't know if this will offend people, but like what feels like more time to fuck it up and still get it right and still
Mhm.
have more time. Whereas in my mid 30s, late 40s, I'm kind of feeling like time is the thing. That's the currency we're working with here. It's not the money that we start chasing in our 20s. Time is what we're working against now. So I kind of would rather enjoy my time than chase mad money, which was a motivator in my 20s. I always wanted money in my 20s, and I was constantly trying to chase the highest paycheck, the next jump, whatever it was. But that is a an old Trish game. Now I want peace. I want to sleep. I want to make sure I'm getting enough hours of sleep at night, enough protein in my diet. That's successful to me.
All right, so let's talk about this movie, him starring Tyreek Withers and Marlon Wayans. When was the first time you saw Tyreek Withers? Do you remember?
I do actually. It was in an episode of Atlanta.
Same.
It was the episode of Atlanta. When I saw that, I was like, I do remember where I saw him because I remember thinking the same thing then that I'm thinking now, which is that this guy looks like a blend of Joaquin Phoenix and Channing Tatum.
It's basically about Tyreek's character, who is Cameron Cade. He's an up and coming football player. He just graduated college and he's supposed to be going to the league.
Mm-hmm.
But it looks like he might not go because he was attacked and had a really bad head injury. So now he doesn't know what to do. And all of a sudden, he gets this call from one of the GOATs in the NFL, Isaiah, who is Marlon Wayne's character, who and Isaiah offers to basically do a training camp with Cameron for a week. And basically, if Cameron succeeds in this training camp, then he'll get a contract and a position with the football team, the Saviors.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a dream opportunity for Cam. He takes the opportunity, but while he's at this training camp, some wild shit starts to happen, and he starts to question if he really wants to play football to this extent.
Yeah, I would too. I would too.
So just so people know, this was directed by Justin Tipping. I think he also did, um, he had one other feature film, I think. I think this is his
Um,
second, but this is like his first horror film.
I actually, damn, I can't remember the other feature film, but I have to.
Oh, Kicks. He did Kicks. Um,
I feel like, and this will come later.
oh, he's done a lot of TV, but his first film was Kicks, and then he's done TV. He's done like Black Monday, The Shy, Dear White
Hmm.
People, Run the World. So he's done a lot of black shit. Um, I don't think this man is black.
I couldn't tell.
He's mixed with something.
I don't want to make any assumptions.
Yeah, I don't know. He might be black and white, but in this photo he looks like he's mixed with something. So we know he's a person of color. But yeah, let's talk about these dang on reviews because the reviews have not been favorable.
When I told you I was going to go see the movie, I made the mistake of looking at the reviews first. And I was like, damn, it kind of lowered my expectations going in. And that's probably why
Hmm.
that's why I have a favorable opinion of it. I don't know. But I was looking around, I was seeing the scores, and I was like, oh, this isn't going to be what I thought it was. And it might not be that great. But I will say I left thinking like this actually wasn't bad. It had a lot of potential.
It has so much potential. I don't think the movie was bad. I think it was just a little disappointing at the end. And that to me is what will kind of mess up a whole film, is if the ending isn't good. But I didn't go in looking at any reviews. I never like to
Mm-hmm.
watch reviews and stuff before I go into a film. I just go cold turkey.
Mm.
Um, but when I did come out and see the reviews, I was like, dang, I think this 29 or percent or whatever Rotten Tomatoes gave it, I think that was a bit harsh, not gonna lie.
I do too.
But also Marlon Wayans basically made this statement where he was like, because the critics were so harsh on the film, he was like, an opinion does not always mean it's everyone's opinion. Some movies are ahead of the curve. Innovation is not always embraced, and art is to be interpreted and it's subjective. And he basically said, I've had a career of making classic movies that weren't critically received, and those movies went on to be classics. And I think that goes into the conversation we had like a few
Yep.
episodes ago of, especially with Black stories, like,
Mm-hmm.
critics aren't always going to get it. I don't necessarily know if that's the case with this particular film, but I do agree that like critics don't always get things right and things can become classics later on in time.
So yes, I do think that I think they were a little harsh on it. I think maybe if the marketing hadn't focused so much on Jordan Peele's name and his involvement in it, it might
Hmm.
not have gotten such harsh critiques. I do think that the Jordan Peele aspect made people expect what they always expect from Jordan Peele because the poor
For
man can't
sure.
do nothing else but achieve greatness.
For
So release
sure.
him from the shackles.
I'm not
But
I'm not even gonna lie, because there was a certain scene, and we're gonna talk about it, but it was a certain scene where it gave like some historical context, and I was like,
yes,
okay, okay, I feel the Jordan Peele vibe.
yep,
I'm excited about this. And then that was it. That was like the
that was
only
it.
little tidbit that we got.
And Jordan, and you could probably speak to this more than I could behind the scenes, but like him being a producer doesn't mean he was like producing scripts or producing like visuals or anything like that. Can you explain more about like what it means to just produce versus what people thought his role was?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't looked into it fully. I don't know if he
Mm,
was an executive producer, and sometimes if you're an executive producer, you
mm.
just writing a check. You know what I'm saying? Like you're just helping to fund the film. You
Yeah,
don't
because
always
Drake
have.
executive produced Euphoria.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's something great to have your name on if you know it's going to be a great project. I think with, Jordan Peele, obviously his production company was a part of the film, so he probably was a producer in some aspect of like maybe he saw the final cuts and made like
Mm-hmm.
notes and stuff like that. But who's to say if he was actually like in the writer's room and helping to
Right.
produce from the very beginning? I have no idea. I haven't heard the man talk about the film at all. So,
Either. But I do think that might have played a role in how people critique this film because we learned that early on it wasn't a Jordan Peele film. So I kind of went into it knowing like, okay, I don't have those expectations of this.
yeah.
So when I left, I really did feel pretty good about it. I think we should, because of the way Marlon Wayans responded, I actually had a lot I wanted to say critiquing the film, but I'd like to do more constructive criticism. And I don't know if this is just my empathy for Marlon Wayans, but I did feel like, damn, you know, he's right about that. Like the critics versus like maybe what the movie was trying to convey and E for effort and shit like that. So I want to start with what we liked and then maybe
Yeah.
get into some more of our, you could have done it a little bit better.
I will say this before we get into what we liked. I do feel like because when I say we, like black people, black films, we don't get that many of them. I do
Hmm.
feel like there is a heightened expectation about this film because of whose names were attached to it. Because this summer, if you think about it, the only big films we got that we were like truly excited about as like a community was this film, Highest to Lowest with Denzel and Spike Lee, which was also kind of disappointing. And then Tiana Taylor's movie that's about to come out. So we haven't had that many theatrical films. There are other little ones like Love Brooklyn and all these other ones,
Hmm.
but when it comes to like big films, there
Yeah, we
haven't been that
haven't.
many. We haven't had that many, and I think that also plays a part in people's expectations.
Hmm.
So yeah, let's talk about what we liked and our favorite moments.
Okay. I'll start with visually the movie stunning. I'm not even gonna hold you. I think the shot choices, and don't get me lying to y'all, I'm using words that I don't even be knowing about, but I think the shot choices were beautiful. I thought the lighting was absolutely beautiful, especially when they stepped out on the field in the end. I was like, they got this lighting perfectly. So I thought a lot of the visuals were very nice. I think that there was a lot of emphasis on visuals, though. That's what I'll say.
I agree. I thought it was a beautiful film. I like a good psychological thriller.
Same.
So I was like into it instantly. There was like some gruesomeness to it. There was
Hmm.
some like trippy moments. I thought like even like the set, like the costumes and stuff like that, I thought like everything looked like this is like we're talking about professional NFL players.
Hmm.
Like even the compound he was living in was like some shit that we ain't
Yeah,
ever seen before. So I thought they paid good attention to detail
they
around
sure
the
did.
visuals. But you know, when it came to the script, they could have worked on a few things.
So, what's funny is my biggest critique of the film is the script. I thought
Yeah,
the acting was fantastic, the
amazing.
visual was good. I also think the direction of the film wasn't that great.
Yeah.
But I think that all comes back to a script and having good plot structure. And I feel like part of me had the most technical critiques about this movie. And we all know I'm not a critic, but like in my mind, I feel like I'm so critical of the technical components because of how great this movie could have been. Like in my
Yeah.
mind, when I start picking apart the things that I want to be better, I'm like, damn, if you had done this, this would have been an A plus plus. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Even the small things of like character development, I
Hmm.
feel like could have made the film go a lot further, even if the
Yep.
storylines didn't like
Exactly.
fully fleshed out, if that makes sense.
Yes, and I will say it could have went further because of the acting too. I think this was one of Marlon's probably best roles to me because it was
Yeah.
so much of his range. He was still him and he was really authentic in the role. I don't think I knew that Marlon Wayans had this much range.
Oh
I'm not
my
gonna lie to
God.
you.
I've been such a big fan of Marlon Wayans. You know, like I love Marlon Wayans,
Yes.
especially as a dramatic actor. So for me, I already knew he was going to give a great performance. I agree with you. I think this is like his best performance because how he was able to go back and forth from
Yep.
crazy
Yep.
and psychotic and also give us bits of humor here and there.
They
And then
created
go
tension.
go into seriousness. He had like a moment where he was like really sensitive. And it was just like it was so many emotions that
Mm-hmm.
this man was going through. And I feel like he executed on the madness of the film because the
Mm-hmm.
film did give us madness. Like it executed on that
It
aspect.
did.
But everything else didn't fit together perfectly. But him and Tyreek were great. I feel like everybody was overall great actors, but obviously it was
Yep.
them two were focused on. And yeah, so you know,
You
ever
know,
since I've seen him in Bel Air, I've been obsessed with him. So
well, and what's funny is I was gonna compare it to this, not in like a like Dick Eaton way where it's like, oh my gosh, he did so amazing. But it did remind me of the way like maybe a Heath Ledger evokes the Joker, or like even the way Joaquin Phoenix did the Joker. So it's
hmm
like he actually said when I went back and looked it up that those were some of his inspirations because he wanted to portray a villain that enjoyed being a villain. Like,
Hmm.
and that you could see it. He actually said that because Tyreek was in such good shape when he originally arrived, he got to seep into his own jealousy and kind of look at that like as motivation to become more fit, to become better. And that like put him in the mind of his character. And I was like, damn, that was some really deep shit. But he was basically saying like he was looking to those types of characters. And I think Tyreek had looked to the fucking movies I had mentioned, Black Swan
Hmm.
for understanding his character a little bit more, and Whiplash, because those are two great examples of like characters who stop at nothing to be great, even at their own detriment. And they're in
Yep.
this abusive relationship with their mentors, and it kind of builds to this what maybe not this, but it builds to something that is dangerous.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Tyreek, I was listening to an interview with them where Marlon was basically like Tyreek was so competitive while they were shooting. It's
Mm-hmm.
like because Tyreek is a natural athlete, like he played
Mm-hmm.
sports,
He looks like
and
it.
yeah, yeah. And so basically Marlon was like, there are certain scenes that I was supposed to win, and Tyreek
Mm-hmm.
like was fighting with the director on like if Marlon should win, and he was like, I'm supposed to get the ball in this scene, like chill out.
That's fair.
But it all plays together,
It
like,
does.
yeah. So, what else did you like about the film?
Oh, I think one of my favorite scenes was what I feel like is the most profound moment. And when I think about like what makes a good movie or even a good like psychological thriller, horror, whatever, it's like an ability to kind of like I don't know, create some type of suspense. And I feel like this movie did that in certain points, but one of the parts that I thought things were gonna really like burst at was when that one free agent had sacrificed himself and was like, oh, no questions asked. Marlon was like, I need a volunteer. And he volunteers to have football smashed into his face. And it's like one after another. And every time Tyreek's character, every time Cameron misses the ball when he's throwing, or somebody doesn't catch it or whatever, like the leadership is on him. And this is really
Hmm.
profound moment where every time he fucks up, this person gets a football to the face and he keep cranking up the intensity of how hard the footballs are thrown. And nobody's explaining nothing to him. He's having all these questions. And he's like, yo, what the fuck is going on? But he realizes in a snap that he has to improve in order to help this guy. And it would
Hmm.
make me think again, like, what are you willing to do for
Yep.
success? And I think it was a question for both him as like, this person trying to get into the NFL, the free agent who I think played a more metaphoric role in Marlon's character for him to be able to call on someone. The team is the saviors. There's all this allegory to like Christianity. There's like 7 days of
Hmm.
training, 7 days of creation, all that good stuff.
They even
Um,
did the Last Supper.
yeah.
Like,
So it's like, you have this free agent who is willing to just sacrifice whatever's going to come at him, doesn't even flinch. I'm going to have these balls to my face. Pause, I guess. I'm going to get these balls right to my face at whatever intensity because, Isaiah White asked me to. And that's Marlon's character. Like, because he asked me to. And I think this is this really, like, I think this, if anything in the movie, brings together the theme of like what this movie's actually about and it presents it in a really great way. But I think that is probably one of the few moments that does that. And that's my
yeah.
constructive critique.
I agree. It was like one of the most like uncomfortable scenes to watch,
Yep.
but I agree. It was like one of the scenes that brought all of these underlying messages together
Yep.
about, what people will do for greatness, what people will do just to say they're a part of something, because there's no guarantee that man was going to be great
Proximity.
in the NFL or get in the NFL. And then also like because at first I thought I thought these were just fans. I didn't realize they were
Mm-hmm.
free agents.
Yeah.
So, but even that extent of like what fans will do and how
Yep.
they will idolize these athletes and celebrities is a part. I think they could have did better with that. I think like,
Mm-hmm.
anyways, but I agree that that scene in itself like really made Cameron's character click
Mm-hmm.
about like what leadership looks like and what greatness looks like attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
And this like the level that you have to get to be a GOAT. because that's basically what Isaiah was
Exactly.
doing. Isaiah was prepping him,
Hmm.
which was crazy. He was like doing some gladiator training to him
Hmm.
so that at the end they could fight kind of on the same level. Um, but he still had to like break him down so that he could understand what it takes to like really become the GOAT. Because everybody says, I don't want to say everybody, but people be saying they want to be
Hmm.
the GOAT, but they don't have no work ethic. So,
Yeah, I think a lot of people see the results and not the process. And if you saw the process, I don't know if you'd want the results, to be real.
exactly.
So that goes back to that question. And I think that's why this scene was so pivotal because the movie is asking, what are you willing to do to be great? Like, what are you willing to sacrifice? That's actually the sixth day in the movie is sacrifice. Like, what are you willing to sacrifice in order to become like this GOAT figure? And I think when I think about this movie specifically, that's kind of what I was talking about in the beginning of like, there's a certain level of grit and determination, and this scene does a great job of showing you that. Isaiah is forcing him to make a difficult decision in the moment, snap decisions in the moment, and if he fails, everybody fails, and it's only going to be on him. No one's getting any other blame. Marlon has that really emotional performance where he was like, show me, like, what do you want? I don't know if it was in that scene or what, but Marlon does evoke that later where he's like, you have to show me because everything's going to fall on you. If you fail, everyone fails. So I
hmm
just thought it did a really good job of showing like the not so pretty parts of becoming great, the parts where you have to make difficult decisions that might get other people hurt.
Yeah, for
That was
sure.
my favorite scene.
So, one of the scenes that we both said that we enjoyed was in the beginning, when Isaiah was kind of showing Cameron around his like
Mm-hmm.
home or whatever, and it was this taxidermy scene
Mm-hmm.
where Isaiah was explaining the history of the quarterback, which I was just like, oh, this is so interesting. Like, this is the scene where I was like, oh, okay, I feel the
Mm-hmm.
Jordan feel of the underlying messages coming in.
So he had talked about it as like this adaptive mechanism that the Native Americans had when they were being forced to play and all this other stuff.
hmm
I will say, of course, my research brain activated. I could not find this story anywhere.
I was gonna say that. I was like, I have to look this shit up because I need to know if this is
I
real or
I
not. So I'm
couldn't
glad
find
you
it.
did.
I could not find it. I looked it up multiple ways, and I was like, okay, this is really fascinating. I'm sure if I knew like the history of like the forward pass or whatever it was they were talking about that became a part of the quarterback's role, or like the snap. I'm sure if I knew the history of football, maybe I'd find somewhere in there this story. I'm just saying that when I tried to look it up and
I
find
mean,
exactly where it was pinpointed, I
yeah,
couldn't
I
find
know
it
a little history of football, but I've never heard of Native Americans being a part of the history of football.
in the
But
quarterback.
maybe I'm wrong with that. Like, I don't know.
Shit, I'll take it. I want all the all the glory.
But
So
I will say one of my favorite scenes was like the opening scene of Cam as a little kid with his dad, and them watching football and you understanding like how much of a football family they are. And I say that that's one of my favorite scenes because I feel like that was one of the few scenes that allowed us to have some type of like character development or background story. I
mhm.
feel like this film lacked a lot of like character development around
Agreed.
Why was Cam like why did he make the decision at the end to change his mind?
Hmm.
Like what was it? He kept saying that family was so important, but all we saw is him bickering with his family the whole time. So that's why I was just like, I don't understand like the
Girl.
connection.
So okay, super nerd shit, real nerd girl shit. Um, the original screenplay was under the name Goat, and I found a link to it on Reddit on the Scribd website. So I started
hmm
reading the original screenplay. And I will say the opening montage in the original screenplay, I feel like would have done it more justice.
What
And
was
the
the opening?
so in the opening montage of the original, they had it where you saw Isaiah White's character kind of grow up and become great and get injured, but
hmm
juxtaposed to like Cam coming into football and he's 2 year old and he's like throwing the football with his dad, and you're watching his potential develop alongside Isaiah's career. So the montage is both of them happening and you keep going back and forth. So there's a connection from the beginning of Isaiah
hmm
White and Cam Cade in the original screenplay. And I think that plays out really well. You get to see Isaiah White become super famous, winning his reigns, marrying, having a kid, and then you see Cam alongside him winning championships, holding trophies in college, and all that great stuff. You see him actually wanting to be Cam. You see him wanting to be Isaiah White. So I think that
Hmm.
montage would have been a better opening sequence than the way they structured it in the film. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, okay, okay. I'm not opposed to that. I just think like even in the end when we did hear
Mm-hmm.
about how Cameron's dad died, like we could have saw that. Or
Mm-hmm.
there just needed to be more about their relationship. And
Yeah,
I'm just like it just felt so disconnected. And so I was a little disappointed in that. Um, so yeah, I mean I guess we're getting into
I
the
was gonna
things
say
we
you want to
didn't
get into the
like.
shits. So I feel like it is helpful to give you guys the kind of critical consensus, and then we'll talk about our maybe will rate it at the end and give it an appropriate rating. I feel like. So it's got a 5.5 out of 10 on IMDb. You know that is for us couch critics. 29% critic
Okay,
rating.
I feel like that's acceptable though, the 5.5. When it was like 20%, I was like, well, dang.
I'll tell you, and we'll talk more about my rating at the end. But I gave it actually higher than a 5.5.
I said around 60 to 65%.
You talking about on IMDb or Rotten
Just
Tomatoes?
me personally, like, yeah, six.
Oh, okay. So we'll talk about it. But 29% critic rating on Rotten Tomatoes, 58% audience rating. So, critics and audience get to rate them differently. There's actually not that big of a difference for this one. 58% audience rating and a 38 Metacritic rating out of 100. So the critics were not happy with it. I actually took a couple of critics. We don't have to like talk about everything they said, but a lot of them were saying like even some of them praised. I tried to get the ones that seemed fair. They praised like Marlon's performance, but they said that it's so wrapped up in the visuals it doesn't concentrate on the script or characters, which we both agree with. Um, a lot of intriguing images, but that don't add up to much. And it just I don't know if I agree with this one. This one feels a little harsh, but it felt like a high budget student film.
Yeah, I definitely don't agree with that. Like,
Yeah,
it
that feels a
cost
little,
I believe the budget was 27 million to make this film. So,
yeah, a little unfair. Bilge Ebury, if that's your name, little unfair, buddy. But somebody did make a point about how it kind of highlights this culture of extreme aggression and thinking about professional athletes, and especially when we're thinking about the exploitation of Black athletes, because that was the whole thing with the NCAA.
oh yeah, yeah,
So
NCAA.
thank you. But that was the whole thing. But she
And
talks about
even that, like, I feel
mm,
like they could have tapped into that more. I feel like we didn't really
hello,
see that until like the final scene.
exactly.
So yeah, yeah.
So I mean, there's a lot of fair critique here. I think that yeah, we can get into my least favorite because I got a lot of beefs. It's not as many beefs as I had before Marlon gave his statement, but I got some beefs. And I think it speaks to some of the critic reviews where I feel like it's a jack of all trades and a master of none. And this is why I said like there was so much potential if it had just focused on certain things. Like I felt like on some Hills Have Eyes, Strangers type shit, Isaiah's obsessed fans that were hanging outside the complex and actually got in
Mhm.
at one point. I feel like they could have played a bigger role in heightening some of the suspense, heightening some of like the terror. I just
Like they were kind of like in the compound the whole time, like sneaking up on him and like
Yeah, and
making,
they were the
and
ones
then
creating the visuals or creating the things he thought he was hearing and seeing.
exactly, yeah.
So I think that there could have been more use of them. And one of my issues was that like the potential of that idea wasn't just like not realized. It was like it was let go too quickly. It was like even when they had snuck in and he had that moment of terror, which that part actually scared me when she crawled from underneath that damn sauna. I was like,
Yeah.
bitch, where did she come from? And then she had all that makeup on like Harley Quinn.
Hmm.
So I think that there was a lot of potential in having it build up to that by, like you said, having them, behind the scenes. But even after it happened, I feel like there wasn't enough response to it. And you remember
Right?
in the beginning, they portrayed Cam Cade as like this really religious, devout Christian guy. He talks about God a lot and how, he's gotten where he's gotten by the grace of God. And I feel like they didn't play that up enough, his religiosity.
Hmm.
Like, is he opposed? Like, does the ending happen because Cam is so like devout in his Christianity? Or does it happen because he wants revenge? Like, what's the motivation of who he becomes in the end and why he makes
Yeah,
the choice he makes? I think
exactly.
some clarity around that could have been from the fact that, he did have this devout religion. Like, play into it, you know?
Because I was also confused on if it was the blood that they were giving him was making him more
Oh,
devil-like and
girl,
aggressive, or
I have
if it was
questions.
just like his head injury. Like I was a little confused on like what was actually turning him evil and making him like, I mean, obviously it was like
The choices.
what?
I feel like what was making him evil, because what it reminded me of was The Devil's Advocate with Keanu Reeves and I think Al Pacino. So basically, at the end of The Devil's Advocate, you find out that Al Pacino's the devil, blah blah blah, and Keanu Reeves has been making deals with the devil. But what Al Pacino tells him is like, you made all these choices to become this person. You neglected
Mhm.
your wife. You decided to defend people that were guilty in the court of law. I think when I think about it that way, a lot of him is in creating him, you have to force them into a position to make difficult choices. And this is why I say, can you be great without being able to let go of some of the goodness of yourself? Because some of those difficult choices are going to hurt other people. So in order to become this person that signs a contract with the literal devil, you have to train a person to make choices that put them in a position to be that type of person, to become
Yeah.
him, that person. So I think that the motivation for him becoming evil, or the character development that wasn't fully executed in the story, was supposed to be him making these choices. They just didn't do a good job of showing that. If I didn't have the devil's advocate for reference, I don't think it would have made sense.
Yeah, it wasn't the clearest. I mean, there were a few moments, obviously, of like the women there, and then obviously like Isaiah pressuring him on the football field, like that
Mm-hmm.
moment where he like tackled the guy, and like
Yep.
we for a second we
So it's a
thought
dead body.
well then I also well at first I thought Cam was the one that got hit, not Cam was hitting the guy.
Mm.
So there's that. And then there was that scene where they were shooting at the range. Didn't he kill somebody? Wasn't the guy that they
Girl,
put out there actually a
girl,
person? And
hello.
nobody ever explained any of that?
Girl, when I tell you, I even have it in the notes that there were moments that deserved longer reflection. The taxidermy scene, the free agent scene, where there should have been more internal conflict from Cam, because it's like, what the fuck is going on here? And that fucking desert shooting scene is in there, because why did you see them drag this thing out, sit it up, and when you shoot it, it falls over? Like, what are we doing right now? Like,
Because
what
then
the fuck are we
I was like, is
doing?
that his sacrifice? Like, did he just make the sacrifice and not know he made a
Didn't ask no
sacrifice?
questions when it fell over.
I was really confused.
But I think it makes you care less about the situations he's being put in, which is why the choice distinction in this movie is not clear. The motivation of choice is not clear here, because there's not enough reflection. So we brush them off the same way the characters do, and it just doesn't connect with what's happening. So
Mhm.
everything, like the movie as a whole, just kind of misses because we're not picking up on what's supposed to be subtleties, because they're not being executed well.
Like, was there a scene where they went over there and Isaiah
Yeah,
pulled the head off and
some,
he saw it was a man? Like, yeah, I needed something, and it was like
but
you're
they
absolutely right.
insinuated it was a person. And it's like
Yeah,
now he had to make the choice of killing somebody, and we're
but
just going to move on.
it didn't seem like he knew that it was a person though. That's why I was like confused because it's like it doesn't seem like he's actually making the choice to shoot and kill
Yeah.
somebody.
I mean, I guess this is where I would probably say my constructive criticisms comes in, where it's like, how, okay, these are my critiques. How could it have been better? I do think that a lot of the critics were saying, like, what was his name? Tipping, the director,
Yeah,
Justin.
Justin.
So a lot of people were saying he'd be a great music video director. I agree with them. I agree.
Yes.
If it's like short bursts of like abstract thought and visuals that can kind of come together quickly, maybe. I think for a feature film, there's still a little room to improve. And one of those is I think it would be helpful. And be it beyond me, who don't know nothing about films and don't write no films or direct films, but my advice would be to turn it into like 3 acts. I think that there was this metaphor for like the seven and using seven, seven, sevens throughout.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that it would have been better with three acts, 3 days, and with the final day being like all the peak and things like that. Because I think 3 acts would have given us a better way of understanding this, where like the first part is him developing and, like setting up the scenes. Like we know something's wrong here, but we don't quite know what's going on. Act two would have been shit subtly and like gradually like intensifying. And then act three would have been the build up to finding out that he's making a deal with the devil and shit like that. What I feel like happened is it goes straight from act one to the end. And nothing happens to build the bridge between those two. And I think that's kind of where it suffers for me. And I think those 3 acts would have given it a little bit more structure. And I actually use the devil's advocate as an example there to like build up to the fact that he's making a deal with the devil, the white devil,
I
the
mean,
white
I
devils.
didn't mind the 7 days. I almost feel like they needed more time
Mm,
with the way that the lack of character development was in this film. I feel like they needed more time for us to see Cam's progression
mm-hmm.
of becoming evil. So maybe him being out in the world and actually hanging out with Isaiah and
Oh,
then
that would have been
being
good.
tempted by the parties, the drugs, like what
Mm-hmm.
actually happens in real life to these athletes. I
Because
feel
it's so
like
far removed, like in this
yeah, I feel
compound.
like that would have maybe made it more realistic where like he's denying his family, he's denying his girl, like
Oh,
like stuff like that.
so I remember what my solution was for that, the gradual build. What I was
Mhm.
saying was, I get that there can only be one person with the hem blood, but you can apparently there's a little grace period of how long two people can have hem blood. My thing was that it would have been better if Cameron had been like microdosed over the course of the days with the him blood where he becomes increasingly more detached from the choices he's making. It would make a little bit more sense now why somebody's getting smashed in the face with footballs and you're just turning around and keep playing. Like I think if he was slowly receiving the blood that makes you him, then it would have been like, okay, now he's detached, but he's getting more violent and his visions are becoming more violent and twisted. And like maybe he's
Mhm.
hallucinating in really bad ways. And I think that would have given like the ritualistic practice a little bit more relevance, like the fact that he was part of a ritual.
Or
Um,
even if they was drinking some blood.
anything, but he randomly
Like,
flipped after the party, and it kind of just didn't make sense. That's why I said it goes from Act One, where the setup is happening, to Act Three, and now suddenly we're in the end, and it's like, bitch, how did we get here? And you had said something about the blood earlier. That was also one of my critiques. Was that I didn't really understand the point of the blood. Like, if he wasn't receiving it in micro doses across like a certain course, like does the blood make you God body or not? And I only say that because Isaiah was on his way to retirement and his body was like starting to like not be able to take hits and stuff like that. So like if you're God body, why do you ever need a successor? Like you got the
I
blood of
would,
Satan.
I mean, I think regardless of like you having like the blood in you, it was more so like like passing down certain traits. Like I think the blood allows you to pass down the trait, but it doesn't stop you from aging. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, okay. Well, because I was also thinking when it came to the blood, and this is where we get into philosophical truth here. Why wouldn't the white owners inject themselves with the blood, and why was it black athletes?
Well, I think it's more so like first of all, the owners aren't going to be out there playing football. Like they own like black football players are seen as like slaves. Like even how the combine is set up, it's a
Right.
test to see how strong, how fast you are, how capable you are, how agile you are. So like I feel like they would give blood to the athletes, but it's like they still control them. It's not the blood isn't making them immortal. You know what I'm saying?
So I think that's where my confusion was, though. And if the blood's not, you said because it gives you the traits. Okay, fair. I was thinking like I don't know, you make a deal with the devil, you get the devil's blood, then it's like, and you become him and you get all this greatness. I guess it's more like the guy that makes the deal with the devil, the blues singer or something like that. It's more one of those situations. Like the contract is going to have an expiration date
Hmm.
regardless. So it's not like you can be great forever or not like you get to live forever. So that makes more
Yeah.
sense.
And that's okay. This is the point I was gonna make.
Mm.
That I was confused by by Isaiah wanting to fight him and saying that if I kill you, then I'll take your youth.
Exactly.
So I was confused of how that was going to happen. Like, does he drink Cameron's blood? I wish they
Hmm.
would have explained that a little bit more. Like, how are you actually going to take his youth? Yeah, that was confusing to
Yeah.
me.
So I think they could have done a little bit better leading up to it. I just feel like, to your point, it wasn't even, it was either you have to do one or two things here. Like, you either have to have more development or you have to have a more concise story. And that's why I
Hmm.
said it either has to have like 3 acts. And even if you put multiple days on one act, like, it has to be 3 acts where we understand which part of the story we're in, or you have to take the time to develop the story out. And you could have made this 2 hours and it probably would have been easily, what's a 6.5 probably for me right now, is would probably be like a 7.5. Like, it would take it up at least a point for me if there was just more development or a more concise story. Because I think it couldn't make up his mind.
Yeah, and I think for me, like my least favorite scene was the last scene. Like I
Oh.
love the revenge of it all, like him getting satisfaction and killing everybody left and right.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, I was just disappointed that it ended like that because I was like, so is this nigga gonna get locked up? Like, is he going back to his family? Like, did he
Mm-hmm.
make it to the league? Because if he would have killed everybody but still made it in the league, then I would have been like, okay, so he did it his own way. Like he didn't really sell his soul to the devil.
Yeah.
But it just left it so ambiguous, and that's one thing I do hate about psychological thrillers when they do leave it ambiguous as hell. Like we have to determine the ending ourselves.
Mm-hmm. I did think the ending was a little lazy, but it's neither here nor there. I think that there could have been a better build up to the ending. I'm actually not
Like,
mad at the ending. I just wanted more of like a reason for it. Like, we still don't know why he chose not to sign the contract after doing all of
I
that.
mean, it had the little voiceover, his mama talking about family is everything. Like, even if he saw a ghost of his father or
Right.
something,
Something,
like,
anything to make us believe that he just killed Isaiah White in a room and now he's reflecting. Like, I just wanted to know why he chose that. Like, was he
yeah.
rejecting greatness or was he
Because
choosing goodness? I don't fucking know.
Because at one point they were like, Brian was also saying, or sorry, not Brian, I went and saw it with Malik. Malik, he was saying he didn't sign the contract because he wasn't fully invested in football to begin with. Like he was just
Mm-hmm.
doing it because it was like his father's wish. Like he was just doing things to make his father happy this whole time. And he
Mm-hmm.
comes to the realization at that point that all of these sacrifices wasn't worth it. Like it wasn't really worth him doing all these things just to make his father happy or his family happy. And so that's why he didn't sign the contract, which I was like, okay, that's fine and all, but they didn't make that
Mm.
clear enough. Like,
That's the thing. There wasn't, the explanation just weren't hitting the way. And you see how we were interpreting all of this? We're having to do like all this gymnastics to even like make these connections. I think even when I talk to people about like teaching, like, I can't remember for Albert Einstein. If it was, great. If it wasn't, don't quote me. But I think he was basically saying, like, if you can't teach something multiple ways, then you don't quite understand that concept or something along those lines. And I
hmm
think that, unfortunately, the director stuck to one way of telling the story and it was the way he understood it. And I don't think he thought about how it would be received or how we as viewers would be connecting the dots in his mind. And I think he could have found another way to like to articulate this concept that would have been, it's such a good idea is the problem that I'm having, and probably why I gave it a little grace. And I guess we can wrap it up here, but it's such a good idea that I wanted it to be better. And I know it could have been better because, like, just like we're making these connections. And even when I was thinking about, oh, 7 days of practice because 7 days of creation, what does it take to actually create him? And I was like, damn, that's
hmm
actually a really good little nugget. But I just don't know if any of that came across like as explicitly as he thinks it did.
Yeah.
And E for effort though. Like, there were some good elements there, a lot of good elements. I just don't, yeah.
Yeah. I just feel like maybe this project also should have been in the hands of someone else as a director.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that Justin isn't a good director, but considering that his majority of his background is kind of like in TV and
Mm-hmm.
his other film, I don't believe it was a horror film at all. So I do feel like that might have played into it is like
Hmm.
the experience of the director. But one thing that I forgot to mention that I did find interesting was that Tyreek Withers wasn't even the first choice for this acting role.
Oh.
Marlon was talking about how they had picked somebody else to play the role, but the other actor turned down the role and did another movie. And
Mm.
Marlon said he ran into the guy on the plane and was like, "Oh yeah, man, like what happened? Like we had casted you, like we wanted you to do the film." And the guy was like, "Yeah, I decided to do another film." And so Marlon was like, "Well, when's it coming out?" And he was like, "Well, it is not. Like it got scratched, basically."
Damn, I'm so
I know.
sorry.
I
Because
know.
Tyreek is definitely going to get some more roles off this. I'll
Oh
be
yeah.
surprised if Marlon didn't get more roles off this, or some type of award at least. But I do think, yeah, I think Justin should probably try again. And this is coming from somebody that has nothing to do with the film industry. I just think he should try again because there was a lot of potential in what he was doing here. It just didn't manifest maybe in the best way. That's all.
Yeah, I agree. And I think horror, like we've had this conversation before, like horror is really hard to do anyways.
Girl,
So, I do think he should try again. I hope he gets the opportunity. Some of us don't be given the opportunity to do more than one
I know, and it's
movie
like,
studio film. So,
and the critics are I guess they're being honest, but some critics just like being critics for the sake of critiquing, and it's like
mhm.
you're just kind of an asshole, bro, and you're like a snooty little asshole, and all you do is blow farts. So like, what else? I just think that some of them just didn't. I think some of them have to understand when it comes to horror as a genre, there should be some grace because I think horror is really hard to do well. I think you do horror well when one of two things happens. Like, one, you have to be able to manipulate suspense into a way that the audience feels like there really is no escape. And it brings you in so deeply that you feel like you're in that situation. The fear actually hits you. And the only other way to do horror well is to innovate the genre. You have to create a new type of horror, a new way of doing horror. And if you don't do one of those things, I think people are really like snooty about it. And I'm like, that's if you think about what those two things are, that those things are really hard to do.
For
So
sure.
I think as a lover of the horror genre, as a lover of like what it takes to try to scare someone or put fear in someone, I think that I'm a little more lenient on horror, and that's why I give him a 6.5. And I think the critics are being a little extra.
Well, I enjoyed this conversation. I appreciate your review because, I feel like your information is always pretty accurate to me. So, anyway,
Thanks.
I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. As always, follow us on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok especially. And if you are not a part of our newsletter, please sign up because that is where we let you guys know about our events and our watch parties and our community chat where we can talk to you live about TV shows and films. Till next time, I'm Mia Dene here with my bestie Trish, and we will see you next time. Love always.